Hey everyone, it's time for another exciting edition of Cloud Office Hours with Cloud Posse, your weekly dose of insider DevOps trends, AWS reInvent news, if we're talking about today, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our SuiteOps community, plus a live Q&A that you can't find anywhere else. It's November 29th, 2023. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator for startups. We help teams who are overwhelmed with AWS, and we do this by using our over 200 Terraform modules that have been battle tested and downloaded over 10 million times. No matter where you find yourself on this journey, we're here to help your startup launch better products faster, free up your bandwidth for innovation, and nail your value delivery every time. If you or your team have been banging your head against the wall with underperforming infrastructure, just head over to cloudposse.com/quiz, answer a few quick questions, and we'll chart a roadmap for success free. Worst case, you get a clear roadmap for shoring up your infrastructure. Best case, we co-build it with you and empower your DevOps team in 90 days or less. So how can you maximize today's session? First off, our format's very informal. Engage as much as you'd like, ask questions, and if you're curious about any of our open source tools or modules, go for it. For those on the recording, we host these calls live, so don't miss out. Just join us live by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours. I do have one ask. If you find any portion of our office hours valuable, please share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse or send us a short testimonial about the value you're getting in Slack. Just go to slack.cloudposse.com. Remember, we're not just creating content here. We're trying to build a community, so we need your help. And with that said, let's jump right on into these exciting announcements. All right, first, got to get some other things off the plate before we spend the entire session probably on reInvent announcements. If we get to questions, we'll see. I'm not sure. All right, so first one was, I guess I missed the original intent to acquire, but I guess this acquisition has now been completed. Now enterprises are freaking out because Broadcom's going to jack up all their prices on VMware products. That's apparently their MO. And yeah, I'm pretty insane. I mean, VMware was a massive company to begin with, and now they were just gobbled up. I forget how much it was, how many billions. Was it 65 billion or something? I don't know. Anyways, that's that announcement. The next announcement is if you're on NewRelic.
69 billion. Sorry, I was just confirming. Yeah, very big.
That is a big acquisition. Didn't see that one come. All right. NewRelic has put out a notice that they are investigating a security incident. Now, this was back on November 22nd, so almost a week ago, and there's been no further information so far. So I'm curious what the nature of that incident is. Now, that's all the announcements I had outside of AWS. Now we'll get to AWS, which has dwarfed my inbox. All right, first one.
Before you do that, I just want to quickly say that I saw someone make a comment that Broadcom acquired VMware for the same price that Microsoft acquired Call of Duty, because they bought Activision for also $69 billion.
What? I had no idea that acquisition was that high. Wow.
Yeah. So
I feel like I don't know. I don't know gaming, so the VMware sounds like a better buy to me, but a bunch of entrenched enterprises with $100 million spends. All right, so yeah, this one's going to make operations team happy everywhere. AWS Backup has added the ability for automated and periodic restore tests of supported AWS resources. So at least from a checkbox perspective, you can say that you are now satisfying your DR commitment to test your backups every 30 days or every 90 days or something. The reality is, I think, it's one thing to spin up the database. It's another to test that you can easily swap it in with all your services, from a true DR perspective. Anyways, this sounds good from a checkbox standpoint. Matt, anything to add to that?
I didn't get to, a lot of these I only did the cursory read,
Okay.
but I'd be curious to know if this can be cross-region, like cross-region restores, because that would actually be very interesting to test real DR strategies.
Yeah, yeah. Now there were a slew of announcements related to Security Hub, which is welcome. I think it's nice to see that Amazon is investing in Security Hub some more. They're obviously facing pressure from like 24 security startups eating their cake related to compliance. And I mean, let's face it, Security Hub has been a real pain to set up, configure, deploy, and take action on. So first one is the dashboard itself is being improved. You can now filter that dashboard on what you need to see. They did that by adding enrichment. So all the findings now are automatically enriched with tags, which can contain like where it came from, the inspector, and the application, perhaps if you configured it with that. So any other tags will be collected. So then the dashboard can be optimized for that. And you can also reorganize the widgets on that dashboard. Then the other thing that's a welcome improvement is centralized configuration now of Security Hub. If you're familiar deploying Security Hub, the way that's been supported now for a couple of years at least, there's this concept of conformance packs. A conformance pack is a collection of AWS config rules that enable some suite of checks. There's like conformance packs for CIS 1.4, 1.2, CIS benchmarks, and like 100 other conformance packs. So what has been added is now a concept of an organizational conformance pack instead of an account level conformance pack. So this improves the ability to deploy, I guess, conformance packs at scale across your organization. Matt?
I think there's two different things being conflated there. So
Okay.
Conformance packs and all the rules and everything are AWS config constructs.
True.
But now they actually give you the ability to delegate the security or whichever account you want, an account as the the delegated administrator for the organization, and then you can actually turn on and configure all of the accounts in the organization from that central place in Security Hub. Like before, you had to, like, if you had an existing organization, you had to turn on Security Hub and then go to every account and every region in that account and basically designate the delegated administrator as your master, kind of, or you had to do like this like invitation acceptor level thing in Terraform, or you had to use our provider, which we custom wrote to do like to basically opt in accounts that already existed. Now they're saying that you can go in and basically select any OU or the top level organizational or individual accounts and set things that say like all of these accounts should automatically come into the Security Hub. These accounts in this OU should be excluded or should be turned on for their own instance of Security Hub, or all these things. And you can do that all from a central place now, where before you had to do it in all these disparate locations to actually get the overall solution working.
Yeah, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah,
that's correct. And then because of that, now there needs to be a way to manage conformance packs centrally. And then this is the way to do the conformance pack management centrally.
Yeah, so basically when you turn on the standards in Security Hub, in order to collect all the data to know whether or not you're compliant against HIPAA, CIS, organizational best practices, NIST, et cetera, the Security Hub relies on AWS config to gather the state of all your various resources across the organization and the rules for what it needs to collect for all of those different standards are now packaged in, or have for a while been being packaged in conformance packs, which you would individually roll out to each region in your account. Now you can actually say, I want to roll out this conformance pack for my entire organization with this new resource, and you can basically get that conformance pack deployed in a single deployment, which is super helpful when you're building these things, especially for companies like us who are constantly standing up new organizations for our customers. It is really helpful to have this kind of thing available.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were just literally like on Friday, what was it? We were talking about how to organize our configuration, how we simplify it. I mean, you're deploying something across 17 AWS default regions in N number of accounts. There's a lot of configuration behind this. This is going to radically reduce the complexity of deploying it, which is welcome. So
yeah, agreed.
Very excited about that. I can't tell you the number of times we're trying to solve things that then AWS ends up solving in short order after we push it off for a year or years. Then finally we can't push it off anymore. We have to solve it. All right, AWS solved it. All right, let's see the next announcement here. Also, just to highlight, it is pretty cool that these things were just announced at re:Invent, and Amazon's obviously working closely with HashiCorp. So Terraform provider support in the official AWS provider was forthcoming almost at the same time, at least for some of these, not all of these announcements. So the next announcement is exciting for anyone who's been looking to leverage Prometheus together with EKS. Obviously, managed Prometheus has been out for some time, but the annoying thing with that, my understanding is you still had to deploy a local Prometheus instance, install the collectors on your cluster. So you're just managing kind of a fault-tolerant instance of Prometheus locally in your cluster. So you're still managing Prometheus, which is like the thing you don't want to do if you're using a managed Prometheus. So now there is support for a fully managed agentless collector for Prometheus metrics on Amazon EKS. I don't understand how it's been implemented, but it means that you don't need to deploy anything related to Prometheus specifically on your cluster, and you can get the benefit of Prometheus metrics and not pay the exorbitant fee of CloudWatch for the same level of detail.
Yeah, from my quick look at it, it looks like they've implemented, you know how like in the EKS console you can go and see like all your deployments and all of the containers that are running and all that kind of stuff. They've basically like added it on top of that layer that gathers all that information, and it calls that API basically to get all the metrics that it needs for to pull into Prometheus.
Cool. And feel free, anyone, to jump in if you have anything to add to any one of these announcements. All right.
I'm very excited for that one. The collector.
Yeah.
I don't know about anyone else, but I constantly see latency in CloudWatch. Like, it drives me nuts. And I know it drives AWS nuts because they don't even know when their own services die. So I'm excited.
Cheap shot. No, well warranted. It is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, implement it on top of CloudWatch metrics for your benefit. But hopefully not.
As a big boss with no sense, that's what I would do.
Yeah. Next announcement is, if you're using EFS and accustomed to paying up the wazoo for insane IOPS, you have now the opportunity to quadruple the amount you spend, as they have increased the IOPS per second by 4.5x, which is an impressive feat. Now, it is obviously leveraging some form of caching because they say for frequently accessed files. This was really exciting. I haven't gone deep enough on it, but reading between the lines, it sounds like this makes it a lot easier to provision fine-grained IAM permissions for your pods deployed in Kubernetes without needing to drop down to Terraform or Pulumi or Amazon, what is it, operators for or controllers for Kubernetes, ACK.
Yeah.
Obviously, something still needs to provision them, but you provision them once and then you can reuse them, I think is how it's implemented.
Yeah, it's basically that the similar to how every EC2 instance gets an instance role, now every pod basically gets an IAM role, and you can assign permissions to that role that the pod launches with, which is pretty cool.
I see.
This is also they pre-announced in the spring at KubeCon that they're gonna launch IAM roles for service accounts V2, and this is that thing.
Mm.
Both will remain supported because there are some features that don't work here and in IAM roles for service accounts, so there is no desperate need to migrate. But yeah, just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really cool is it's one of the highlights there, the role session tags. If you see it there, yeah. So what this means is that the role sessions that these identities have are tagged with the cluster name, namespace, service account that launched this. So then you can write IAM policies that have conditions for all of these different things, so that you can actually very easily then tie in and say, like, I only want this service to be able to assume this role, and then assuming you trust, you know, the OIDC provider of EKS to properly tag all those things, then you get that kind of for free out of the box. You don't really have to do, you know, a lot there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you know if the mechanism for sharing the identity to the EKS pods are similar to how they do in EC2, where they inject the environment variable?
I believe someone I saw write it up that said that it was similar to that, but I haven't verified it myself, so I can't say for sure.
That's very cool. All right. Let's see. Where were we?
I hope each pod doesn't have a metadata service. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
There is a daemon set you have to run on every single node.
Yeah, on the node, right.
So then it wouldn't work with Fargate, I guess, then? Since Fargate doesn't work with daemon sets.
They probably have the daemon set running, I would bet.
If you open up the announcement, is there a limitation called out for this?
No.
No. Maybe documentation.
And it says it's available in all regions where EKS is available. So, well, there you go.
Yeah, so no Windows and no Fargate support yet.
Yeah. All right. This is super exciting. I remember it was like 2 years ago they announced account factories for Terraform. I was actually at reInvent. I was so excited. We've been waiting on it forever, and then you like start looking in. I was misinformed for months thereafter until we actually went to go do it and use it and realized, oh wait, this isn't really Terraform. It's a Rube Goldberg apparatus that calls Terraform unattended and just assumes Terraform applies, or, yeah, trust me, I got this. So you don't inspect your plans. Anyway, so this is now officially controlling Control Tower with APIs and forthcoming provider support in AWS for managing it with first-class Terraform resources.
Yeah, although...
Wait, you're going to burst my...
Sort of. The first resource the AWS Control Tower landing zone resource, which
Yeah.
looks great. I looked at the implementation. Basically, it takes a manifest that's like this like control tower API. If you click on that there, it's the control tower. If you go to the create landing zone one, it has like a manifest as a JSON value, and then if you scroll down to be what that looks like, it's this whole crazy like descriptive thing in CloudFormation like syntax that you basically can just pass to a Terraform resource and then it applies it for you.
Okay. So it's like the cloud resource kind of, but
kind of, yeah. So yes, you can check the box that it's supported, but it's not like you can fully configure the landing zone using Terraform yet. So hopefully this is a first step, and then even the API, if you look, the API call itself takes this manifest file. So they haven't like, they don't have like all the individual parts like broken out into their own resources yet.
Mhm.
So, but hopefully we'll get there.
Nonetheless, movement in the right direction.
It is. It's in the
Fine.
right direction.
Being optimistic here. Let's see. Next announcement is, all right, this is kind of cool. If you are a CloudFormation user, native Git management of stacks is now supported. So you can connect CloudFormation to one of the popular Git systems like GitHub, GitHub Enterprise, GitLab, Bitbucket directly. And you push commits to a branch and it automatically synchronizes that CloudFormation. Now, that might in practice be not as nice as it seems, because you might want to actually inspect that change set, I guess. But trust me, I don't make mistakes.
Well, at least CloudFormation does have rollback.
Yeah, it loves to roll back, in fact, all the time.
Yeah.
And those rollbacks love to fail also.
Yes.
And I guess the last announcement was console-to-code preview. So you can basically click ops your stuff and then have it generate the corresponding CloudFormation code, or CDK code, I think was also supported. No Terraform support. And with all these kinds of announcements, I don't know. I think if it's a certain use case, like, dude, they just asked me to do this, I don't want to touch this again. Or like, I'm just doing a migration, or maybe you have to export something from one organization or one account to another account, and you just want the code to kind of replicate that. You can then use this. But machine generated code is often like, it's a little bit like decompiling a binary. You can do it, but you don't want to work with it. It's not optimally organized into modules and logical pieces like that. It won't be dry.
I immediately think of Dreamweaver.
Yeah, something along those lines. Now, okay, it is a little presumptuous. Obviously, generative AI is incredibly capable once it's been properly tuned. So what's to say it couldn't properly do that? I just, I doubt that it would have the intuition.
So on that topic there, I will just say, I looked at Fireflies, not the note-taking thing. I think it's called fireflies.io.
Yeah.
Have you seen them? They
had
actually
a Terraform
do
provider or something, right? That they just deprecated. I think we talked about it last week.
Oh, I wasn't on the call last week. Sorry.
Okay.
But they actually have generative Terraform capabilities, both in using modules and or direct, like adding resources directly to like a main.io. I'm almost sure it's called Firefly. Oh, that's it. .ai. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they actually support modules, which is kind of cool. I kicked the tires a little bit on it, but not at an in-depth level enough to give a full review yet.
Whew. All right.
I had one comment on that. Yeah, this one right here, the console-to-code generation, or actually two comments. One, Azure's had this for a while, right? It's like you could go to the console, do whatever you need to do, and they actually give you the CLI command that will allow you to, you know, do whatever you did again from the command line. You can modify it, use it as a snippet, something like that. And yeah, I totally agree with you, Eric, that machine generated code is probably the absolute worst for working with like in a repeatable fashion. And one example of this is Terraformer, where you reverse engineer stuff that you've deployed. And I kind of see this in that same sort of vein, but I will say that it might be a good way to start your infrastructure as code exploration or templating, whatever you want to call it. Because the way that I've used Terraformer, I'll build out everything in the console and then reverse engineer it to code. And then I'll use the code, I'll modify it to make it look like I want it to look, you know, I'll kind of pair the variable names together, the resource names, and, you know, because everything's totally out of sync and, you know, it doesn't make any sense or whatever. So I could see this approach being useful in that aspect for CloudFormation. I forget there's an app that used to do that. It was like I want to say a Chrome plugin or something like that, where you would, you know, do your actions in the console and it would capture the API calls and give you some sort of code. I forget what the name of the plugin was. I never used it. I don't think I found a valuable use for it. But if this is, you know, it's backed by AWS, it gives you pretty decent snippets or full CloudFormation templates, whatever it gives you, it might be a good start. You know, it's better than nothing, because I've been wanting what Azure has been giving everybody since pretty much day one.
But would Azure be giving you the equivalent of like an AWS CLI command, or would it be giving you declarative infrastructure as code in RAM or whatever? I forget what the language is.
It's been a while since I've used it, but yes, on the Azure CLI command. But I thought they also gave you whatever their version of CloudFormation is as well. I'm drawing a blank on what the format is called.
Looks like Rohan found that plugin you were thinking about.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's cool. Looks like it's been abandoned, unfortunately. But any other announcements or anything? Any other comments on the announcement before we move on?
Eric, you still have 2 more announcements now.
Oh yeah, but I mean, any more comments on this announcement? I meant to say thank you for.
For non-Terraform code generation, they also announced Amazon Q issue to PR or whatever the final name was. I posted the link in the Zoom chat to blog post announcement. Zoom chat. There's a link there. You basically create an issue. They're showing it here with Code Catalyst, which is not something you ever want to use, but we're gonna gloss over that. And you create an issue and you basically tell Q, hey, code this up for me. And it's gonna do it for you. So there's a lot of generative, a lot of AI generation of code happening.
That's kind of cool. That seems like a logical thing for GitHub to rip off. Solve this issue with code. Was it Copilot? GitHub issue to Copilot PR.
I think GitHub also had something like that in preview, or as part of GitHub Next showcase or whatever it's called.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, Copilot for pull requests, was that only?
I think this is for some
descriptions or also implementation?
Yeah, write better.
Either way, it wasn't launched. AWS launched theirs, so yay, props to AWS.
Yeah, seems cool.
All right, think that's actually your next announcement.
It's preview.
Yeah. So, and there was another aspect of that we were talking about this morning. A couple members on the team were kicking the tires on it, and had the unfortunate encounter of more hallucinations. I don't know, did I add I think I forgot to add the link to it anyways, but yeah, Matt, Jeremy, you guys want to share your experience, or what is AWS Amazon Q and your experience?
Yeah, it's basically when you open the console now, it's on the right hand, the AWS console. It's on the right hand side, and it's basically a chat GPT for AWS essentially, where you're supposed to be able to ask it any kind of question you want over the AWS domain, in the context of the page that you're on, and it will then give you your answers in context, basically, based on what you've asked it. So
Yep.
I hope that Q is a more like means like question or throwback to the James Bond character or something, rather than I don't know, for some reason every time I see it I think of QAnon, which is not good. So
I can say that that wasn't what I thought of, but I did think of like comparing it to ChatGPT, and the answers are, I guess, recent, because it even mentioned we were basically having a discussion about Identity Center today, and I was like, oh, okay, I've already used this a little bit, and I asked it, so can you have multiple identity centers and in an organization? And it was just glibly like, sure, yeah, and then gave an answer in the links, and I clicked on the question, and in the question it's no, you can't. So it's kind of a curious thing. It knows how to link information between different topics. I think that you do have to dig in when you're asking it questions, and in that particular case, the nice thing about it was that it did link to an article that was, I guess, from probably covered last call, was that Identity Center now lets you have these sort of in account versions of Identity Center, and maybe it was getting confused with that, but that's not the same as having an organization Identity Center. So it's still got some work to do, in my opinion.
So the last announcement I have was
one mention here regarding Q. So Q is Amazon's umbrella name for a bunch of generative AI services. It's not just the thingy. So there's the chat thingy in the console, which you get to ask questions with. It's the issue to PR thing that's also part of Q. There is also a thing, Q code transformation. I posted the link in the Zoom chat, which for now can basically take an older Java app and update it to the latest Java version. So from version 8 and 11 to version 17. And they're also they mentioned they're gonna add support for .NET. So moving from .NET Core, .NET 4 to .NET 8, which I assume just launched, and from .NET Windows to .NET Linux, powered by generative AI. So Q is just like the umbrella for a bunch of different generative AI products. It's not one thing.
That's great. Thanks.
I also I named the other thing, the corner there, the one that shows up in the console, Clippy for AWS. You remember in Microsoft Office, they had that little Clippy guy that popped up all the time?
I already want to make a Grease Monkey script that actually implements that, because I would love that.
That's what I was reminded of when I started using it.
It looks like you're trying to spend a lot of money on a NAT gateway.
That would have been hilarious as a throwback, though. Oh, it's two different. Yeah, so that's what Microsoft should launch is Clippy for Azure, I guess. We'll see. That's powered by GPT.
That would actually be cool if they did that. But that's what Q reminds me of, or at least the the one that appears in the AWS console. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. Okay. Last one I had was something new, a new storage class for Amazon S3 called Express One Zone, which is a way to localize parts of a bucket in other regions is the gist that I got from it. It was a little bit confusing to me. So you'll have a primary bucket, and then you'll provision additional buckets following a specific format, and then those will be nested directories inside of the other bucket, but accessible through a different region. Is that right, Vlad, or someone else who knows more?
Again, I'd say I'm under many NDAs, and I don't know what was launched publicly or not. But no, this is basically S3 in one availability zone. It's not regions. It's you get S3 with data stored just in one availability zone. It's a lot more performant. There are can you search for prefix there?
But what's the idea of a directory bucket? I couldn't understand.
Yeah, that's how basically you create the thingy.
Okay.
Think of it as a new class that stores your data in just one AZ. The price per request is a lot cheaper. The price for storage is a lot more expensive. So there are some interesting trade-offs, but you get a heck of a lot more performance and way lower latency and a bunch of things. Folks that are doing cell-based architectures are going to be very happy with this.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think this is really designed for people who are training extremely large machine learning models, and they need to feed data to to some service to be able to process them at high speeds. So you can basically set up a bucket, set up one of a bucket in each different availability zone you want to do that in. You spin up multiple things that can ingest that, and it can read at a much higher rate than normal S3. And that's the whole idea behind it, is that it's faster. Or people are doing media I think they mentioned it in here, media encoding and what do you call it when I can't think of the name of when you do the video when you're converting from transcoding. Thank you. I'm like transpiling. No, that's not it. Transcoding and all those kinds of things. I think it's basically optimized for those use cases.
Yeah, if you ever wanted more performance out of S3, or if you were very annoyed about the request costs or per prefix limitations, this is for you. It's awesome. And again, folks that are doing cell-based architectures with per availability zone cells can just, if this is a fit for them, they can just adopt it immediately.
Yeah, although the auth thing is interesting, is that you get a token now that you have to pass with you create a session, then you get a token that you have to pass with every request to actually call it now, which is a little bit of an interesting shift. So I wonder if they're thinking about doing that with all of S3 eventually. That also increases the throughput, because they just have to validate the token's validity. They don't have to actually do the full authentication check on every access, which is what they had to do with S3 before.
I'm so curious why they chose, it's not a coincidence or accident, that, and I'm sure a lot of thought went into it. I'm just so curious, why do they call it a directory bucket? Is it just
I
you're
think
directing the bucket to a zone, or
I think what's happening is you're like you write you can write from like a source bucket like into one of these directory buckets,
okay?
and then the reads are optimized.
Yeah, because they should follow a hierarchical way of naming. I forget where they said that. My base bucket is JBar and exists in such and such. The name I apply to create bucket would be JBar pop up pop up. Although the bucket exists within a specific availability zone, it is accessible from other zones in the region. I mean, could it be thought of as federated buckets in that case? That a bucket is federated to other buckets?
I don't think so. I think it's like legit. You're setting it up specifically in that availability zone. So think about like an availability zone, like often is in a different data center on like a dark fiber ring that's 15 or 20 miles away. So like legit that latency in a region could be enough to be significant for these extremely high bandwidth, high throughput applications. So I think they're literally letting you like co-locate your data in the availability zone with the thing that's processing. So I think in this article, I think at the bottom they talk about SageMaker, like machine learning training as one of the use cases of this or whatever. So yeah, there you go. Athena, MapReduce, Glue, and then all these other things. So
all right. Well, that's really interesting. Any other announcements catch your guys' eyes?
I'll just make a general comment that we just went through like probably almost all of the announcements from like the several hundred announcements that weren't explicitly AI/machine learning announcements. So just like GitHub, GitHub, I said a couple weeks ago, became a machine, an AI company. Amazon is like transforming solely into like only being an AI company with some like underpinning services like to support those AI things that they're trying to do. So it's interesting to see how rapidly everyone is doing this.
Yeah, they did have a bunch of AI announcements. I'm not gonna deny that, but they had a bunch of non-AI stuff like Lambda scaling changed, OpenSearch got new dedicated nodes, a bunch of zero ETL stuff. Like there were a lot of
Lambda scaling changed based on AI. I think that was the announcement.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah. At least for Redshift or something, or like scaling based on.
Yeah, there were several like I'm just saying when I scanned through these every day to just give like a quick summary of everything, and I was like AI. Oh, here's one that's just like infrastructure stuff. Like all the bedrock stuff, that's all like generative AI.
The machine learning keynote just happened. Like
I know. Go back to the 26th and you'll see a ton of AI.
Trying to get there, but I've been DOS attacked from 7 pages of 27.
Yeah.
The step functions HTTP thing, it was just on the screen. That's gonna make a lot of people very happy.
What did I miss there? Let's see here.
So you know how you had step functions and you wanted to call an API and you had a Lambda call that API. No more Lambda needed. Step functions can just call the API for you.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Assuming they can do like all the authentication things that you usually need to do that, then it should be cool.
They can do most of that. It's working on the same thing as what's it called? Event Bridge API destinations.
Yeah. That's cool.
All right. Other interesting announcements from reInvent or otherwise?
Did I just see something that they have a service now to determine adult content or something? I just saw like EX
Monitron.
X rated or something. EX. No, it's oh, there you go. Oh, never mind. That's like a physical sensor.
Yeah.
They do have recognition which can detect nudity. Yeah. They have transcribe which can detect swearing and other words.
I was just gonna make a joke that they released the hot dog or no hot dog thing from Silicon Valley that the guy was building, whatever that guy's name was. I can't remember it.
There was another cool, or at least announcement that I thought was pretty cool. It was there on the workspaces. So basically, they've made like a $200 thin client, and it doesn't have a hard drive. From the specs that I read, you basically, you just plug it in, mouse, keyboard, webcam, and you get connected to workspaces. I looked at the pricing for Amazon Workspaces. I wasn't sold on switching over to that, but still think it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. Am I reading a Citrix announcement from 2002? I mean, this is essentially what they did. They partnered with Wise, and Wise made all those dumb terminals that just had a Citrix client embedded on the firmware, and then connected to it. It's basically the same idea. We're just moving back to mainframes, essentially. That's what we're doing.
Everything is cyclical.
Yeah.
Interesting, but it's contact sales for pricing.
Oh, they had some pricing listed on the website. I did the rough math.
For purchasing. It's not like I was hoping just to see click here and a link to Amazon where I can go buy it.
Yeah, Vlad also just shared in the chat that MTLS for the ALBs. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that.
They also had something with automatic target weight stuff for ALB, which was more interesting. We made fun a few weeks ago, a month ago, about me not caring about MTLS and stuff. I was like, I have the announcement for you. And it's not AIs.
Yeah, I think that was when we were talking about service meshes that you didn't really care. Yeah.
So now you can deploy ALBs like a mesh, and not cheap, but
do they give you the client cert then? If because typically you've never been able to export a certificate from ACM, right? It's always been
will you give it presumably the public key that you created?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is for business to business transactions, so that you can. It's the equivalent of having a shared passphrase in webhooks, so that you can verify that the sender is actually the sender. So now they can sign it with their certificate, and if you know their public key, you can basically just verify that actually got signed, by that certificate.
Got it.
Which now we're just trying to figure out another way to implement X509 in an easier way, I guess, over ALBs. So more cycles.
That's nice. All right. Yeah, so Vlad shared another one. Application load balancers increase application availability with automatic target weights. So it'll automatically adjust where the traffic is going to upstreams based on things like connection errors and 500 server errors and so forth. All right.
Yeah. So it's kind of like automatically implementing like circuit breakers or backups for you or something like along those lines to your upstreams.
What I'd love to see, and I don't believe is support, is the ability to immediately retry requests to another backend. Because when you're auto scaling like your Kubernetes clusters with Carpenter, it's pretty disruptive to end users if you're doing that often enough that your connections are dropped. All right, well, that was a great list. I guess in the last few minutes, if there was somebody who had a question, we can try and get answered in 5 minutes.
I did have a question. I was recently looking at changing my Vault backend. Right now I'm using the integrated Raft protocol, and I've got that spread out across 3 nodes. But I was considering one of the community supported S3 backends, where basically you lose Vault HA where you're not running 3 nodes, but you have the storage backend being S3. So you run single node Vault and just have your backend state. Sorry, not your backend state. Your Vault database stored directly in S3. I was curious to know if anyone here was doing that, or if they've gone the console route, or I guess the more official HashiCorp supported route. For what it's worth, in the docs, they've got a lot of options of other stores that you can use, but only 2 of them are officially supported, or 3 of them. I think local file system, console, and the integrated Raft.
What Vault specific features do you depend on?
Primarily just a key value store.
And why introduce it?
It seemed like a simpler option to just have it in S3, because S3 is typically pretty awesome. Nothing really, I mean, it's actually more work for me to switch over to that. I was just thinking it might be a better option, but
as opposed to ESM or SSM, like why?
Why Vault over SSM versus versus the other option?
Why even have it in the stack?
We're doing a lot within Kubernetes, so that's part of the bias there, is the way we deploy our Kubernetes environment and the tooling that we're using. Of course, we're also deploying this onto different clouds, so we aren't just AWS specific. So a lot of it's trying to be agnostic to the vendor. And even as we deploy it into other clouds, my next question was going to be, if anyone's using it, have you tried it with latency?
Right. And there are slight differences between the various S3 compatible air quote object stores.
So another like real consideration would be, have you considered the actual like hosted offering from HashiCorp?
Actually, I've not. I should revisit that. That's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah. Alternatively, not saying something you don't know about, but it's a different way of thinking about the same problem. You're aware of external secrets operator. You're aware it supports SSM, but it also supports the native store of multiple other clouds, I believe. So then you rely on the managed offering in each of the relative clouds, which could be considered an advantage, while you're still relying on Kubernetes secrets as a unifying abstraction.
Yeah, except then you do have to store your secret 2 or 3 times, depending on the number of clouds that you're in.
Sure.
I guess I didn't know the way. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you are concurrently operating yourself for customers in multiple, then Matt is right.
Yeah, and if you're using like Vault's automated rotation, like and all of that kind of stuff, like that becomes much more difficult to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what you were saying.
That's why I asked how you're using Vault. Like
Yeah,
Vault
yeah,
does
yeah,
so
of
much
course.
awesome stuff. So yeah, if you're using Automate, then obviously stick with that. But sometimes it's like it's thrown into the mix, almost more like satisfying a checkbox rather than actually providing incremental value.
yeah, we aren't leveraging any of the fancier features. It's purely just key value stores. So we could easily swap over the cloud specific vendor, the cloud specific solutions. The idea was eventually we'd start leveraging like rotating secrets, like for databases and stuff like that. But going back to the original question, it sounds like folks, if they are using Vault, are probably just using the recommended supported version. So if not, using that external secrets and the many cloud integrations might be the next best option there.
Yeah, and if you do want to get around the, I know someone else who's done this, that they used external secrets operator with, oh my God, what's the password? 1Password. So 1Password has all their enterprise like level storage, and you can basically just use external secrets operator with that, and load secrets from your 1Password vaults into into your various clouds out there, because then you become cloud agnostic, quote unquote, depending on, even though we have no insight really into where 1Password stores all of its backend, which I'm sure it's on one or more of those clouds.
Paul posts in the chat regarding Vault and cloud agnosticism. I'm curious in general whether people considering calling the AWS SSM parameter store API from other clouds, perhaps using roles anywhere, lots of overhead to maintain and operate Vault if AWS is one's predominant cloud.
Yeah, unless the reason that you're being multi-cloud is like to protect against Amazon having a problem.
Yeah, no, I've definitely contemplated just using AWS SSM in the past. I went the Vault route, thinking it was a great idea at the time, and then after you do it, you're like, wow, that was a lot of effort for trying to figure out how to back it up, trying to figure out how to restore it. And we built some automation around it. I'm still not really a fan. Plus, you factor in the recent licensing changes. Vault SSM, as far as I know, probably checks all the boxes we need. But yeah, we'd have to figure it out. So that's another.
If you deploy enough nodes, you don't have to ever back it up or restore it.
Are you talking about Vault?
That was sarcasm.
Yeah, I think the other situation was we accidentally do a delete with the CLI or whatever.
Yeah, I know. I was just joking.
Yeah, no worries. Cool.
Well,
thanks.
Yeah, our pleasure. So we are at time for today. We'll be posting a recording of our session today to youtube.com/cloudposse. So if you'd like to keep your team abreast of all the things happening at reInvent that we found interesting, one great way of doing so. If you're interested in getting some of these links through your email, we do have a weekly newsletter at newsletter.cloudposse.com. We also syndicate our office hours as a podcast, so you can get these however you listen to podcasts. Go to podcast.cloudposse.com. If you're interested in working with Cloud Posse to see if we can move the needle for you at your organization, very easy. Go to cloudposse.com/quiz, answer a few quick questions, and you'll book a meeting with me directly so we can work through your situation and see if we can help. Wish you all a great rest of your week. Take care.